What's up, horror fans? It's Danny here from the Lasercast. This is Biddy, and I promise you, no animals will be harmed in the making of this video. I'm going to let her go, or else I'm going to be the animal that gets harmed in the making of the video. Excuse me. As you can see from the background here, I'm still in my bedroom. COVID is much better, but my wife and I are still trying to stay as far apart for a couple more days. So she's out in the living room with my horror bookshelf behind me. Before I get started with the video today, I just want to shout out my buddy Pete, Anchor Pete, my co-host on this channel, the man who got this channel started. He sent me this awesome alien shirt from cavitycolors.com for my birthday this past weekend, which is funny because I also ordered a different alien shirt from Cavity Colors for their Alien Day on 4/26. If you go on our channel now, you can see Pete and we did a great review of Memory, Origins of Alien, a documentary about the making of the first film. We did that last week for 4/26, LV 4/26, Alien Day. So thank you to Pete. We're here to talk about the season finale of Season 2 of Cursed Films on Shudder. And if you couldn't tell from the no animals were harmed in the making of, we're talking about a good one today. And by good one, I mean a pretty notorious one. It's Cannibal Holocaust, folks. In fact, the episode itself starts with an actual disclaimer that there is, stuff in this episode that is, stuff that you don't want to watch. I've seen Cannibal Holocaust 2 separate times from beginning to end. The first time, I remember finally just getting my hands on a copy of it to see what it was all about. And I don't remember how I processed it. I really don't. I don't know if I was so young. And I wasn't young. I didn't see this movie when I was 10. I saw this movie probably when I was in my either late teens or early 20s, maybe dying days of the local video store. I was able to snag a copy of it to watch. And I remember thinking, this is pretty effed up, but I don't know if it really lived up to the expectations I had built up for it. I saw it again when it was on The Last Drive-In, when Joe Bob put it on The Last Drive-In. And what I will say is, obviously, the thing that everybody comes to with this movie is the animal cruelty. They make a point in this episode to talk about how the animal cruelty is so bad that it actually makes the viewer forget that there are multiple rape sequences in this. There is the exploitation of an indigenous tribe. There's all of this awful stuff that you're watching. But because the animal cruelty is so in your face and disturbing, it really impacts everything else around. If there were a way to go back in time and not legitimately murder animals on screen, and they kill several animals in this film, the most graphic, if you've never seen Cannibal Holocaust, there is a full turtle killing. In this episode of Cursed Films, they do show parts of the film that revolve around the killing of both the turtle and the pig. I don't know if they actually show it on screen. I gotta be honest, I kind of gave one of these. I'm not sure if they show it on screen, but there are parts where you're going to want to look away in this. That being said, I genuinely like Cannibal Holocaust as a horror film. I think it has a great score. I think it achieves its goals of being a shocking found footage style, like exploitation cannibal film. I just wish I could take back all the scenes of animal cruelty. It is not a movie that I am ever going to go out and try to buy on Blu-ray. It's not a movie that I'm going to seek out to even watch again. You know, I watched it because it was Joe Bob's Last Drive-In, and if there's one person who I trust to curate that film in a safe way for the viewers, it's Joe Bob Briggs. That said, you know, I take myself to task all the time about my parenting choices when it comes to movies that I've let Charlotte watch. She's 11 years old. She's seen The Exorcist. She's seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She has seen the entire Friday the 13th franchise minus the remake. So she has seen a lot. I would not ever let her watch this film. Until, of course, you know, like when she's older, when she's 11, when she, you know, gets to high school age and she's making her own choices, yeah, if she wants to seek out Cannibal Holocaust, go ahead. But I'm not going to be the person that shows her Cannibal Holocaust. I'll let her make that decision on her own. And this is a guy who's let his daughter watch, you know, some of the most graphic, scary horror films that you would never think let your 11-year-old watch. There's a thin line. There's a line between like the stuff that you see in The Exorcist with Reagan being possessed by the devil. Even the mutilation that she does to herself in that movie it's more easy for me as a father to explain that the devil is possessing this girl to do these terrible things than it is for me to say, yeah, these filmmakers decided to kill a turtle for no reason and torture it and shoot that pig and cut that monkey, kill that monkey on screen. Yeah, I don't want to do that, you know? I'd rather her come to that decision on her own. That out of the way. That was a long introduction. Cursed Films. Love this episode. Love where this show has gone. This show got a little controversial in the first season, and I even felt with the Rosemary's Baby episode, it got a little exploitative by interviewing Veronica Vitri and spending so much time talking about the Manson family, which was kind of, you know, it's loosely connected to Rosemary's Baby. These last few episodes, and I credit the director, the creator of the show, Jay Cheel, I credit him for taking the show in this direction, where, and I've said this with both Stalker and Serpent in the Rainbow, these feel less about, ooh, spooky curses connected to the movie, and they feel like they can be really good 40-minute documentary pieces, extras on a Blu-ray. I would, you know, if I bought a deluxe edition of Cannibal Holocaust, which I said I'm not going to do, I would love it if this was a bonus feature. And I would watch this more willingly than I would watch the movie again. This episode features interviews with everyone. It starts with Ruggero Deodato, the director, who infamously was arrested after the movie was made. The legend goes that he had to prove that his cast members were actually alive because he was going to be charged with murder. That is kind of up in the air if you watch the end of the documentary here, this episode. But the three lead actors in it, Francesca Ciardi, Luca Barbareschi, and Carl York, are prominently featured in this. The director of photography is there. The production designer is there. So you're getting first-hand accounts of things that were going on while this movie was being made. The most damning testimony, obviously, if you've seen the movie, comes from Francesca Ciardi, who the lead actress in the movie, who is part of an awful rape sequence of an indigenous woman. She gets involved in that scene. Then she's in a love scene with Carl York's character in the film, where she even describes how she was willing to, these are her words, she was willing to go into the woods with Carl York and practice the love scene, but he didn't want to because he saw the wildlife that was in the woods and he didn't want to put himself out there in jeopardy, which leads to this hilarious cut in from the other actor, Luca Barbareschi, who's like, wait, she wanted to have sex with him? I would have done that. They end up having this love scene where Deodato decides he wants to film it again so he can get a shot of her topless for the camera. And basically she talks about how she was just kind of emotionally abused and then physically abused later on once her character's death scene is effectively this gang rape / death scene at the hands of the indigenous people in the Amazon and the cannibals. And she said she felt like she was willing to do stuff at first, but she felt that she got taken advantage of. And it's really hard listening to a lot of her stories because of how brutal the stuff is. And what's even worse is that Deodato, he keeps popping on and seemingly has no regrets about anything. He is like almost mocking in his tone about how, oh, she was down for anything. She said she'd do it. It feels really like Deodato does not seem like a guy you'd like to spend a lot of time with on a film set. I think that goes without saying. They also talk about one of the actors who's not featured, Perry Perkinen, who they said he was responsible for the killing of the turtle, and that they felt that it damaged him psychologically, and that they, like, when they would ever come back together to do cast reunions or whatever, they can never find him and contact him. One of the things I really enjoyed the most, though, was listening to these film critics and these film historians talk about the legacy of the movie. You have an Italian author and film historian, Eugenio Ercolani, and then you have another, an American guy, Nick Pinkerton, who the two of them are really, to me, they were the highlights of this in terms of giving the historical context of everything going on here. Especially Eugenio Ercolani, who, obviously being Italian, he has the point of view of what was going on in Italy at the time and how these Italian films, the 70s Italian genre, horror genre, cannibal films, the work of gore meisters like Lucio Fulci, the godfather of gore. You have the work of Argento, who was making gory, gross, bloody movies, but they were done in that giallo, like very artsy fashion. You have these filmmakers, and he talks about Ercolani and how, like, so much of Italian cinema was just waiting for the rest of the world to do something in the horror genre and then co-opting it when it came to things like zombies, Jaws ripoffs, Alien ripoffs, and things like that. And a lot of, they talk about, there's also obviously the connection to the found footage genre. I am, oh God, it's hard saying this. I am now 40 years old. I just turned 40 years old. I remember being 17 and being in the movie theater in 1999 when the Blair Witch Project came out. And I remember all the hubbubaloo about, now I really feel old, I said hubbubaloo, about the Blair Witch Project. And then, I think it was after seeing Blair Witch, I saw Cannibal Holocaust and thinking, Cannibal Holocaust did Blair Witch before Blair Witch. And what's great in this episode is Eduardo Sanchez, one of the directors of Blair Witch Project, is interviewed. He's one of the guys talked to, and he said the same thing. He said he had never seen Cannibal Holocaust until people said, oh, this Blair Witch Project reminds me a lot of Cannibal Holocaust. And then he went back and talked about that. There's a lot of great lines in here. I come back to that Italian author and film historian, Eugenio Ercolani. He calls this movie, he had a quote towards the beginning where he calls this movie problematic, which obviously, But he said what's problematic about it is that it's not necessarily an exploitation movie, but you also cannot elevate it past exploitation because of all of the things in there, namely the animal cruelty, the rape sequences. So it comes across, it lives in this like middle ground between exploitation cinema and horror cinema, and it's you can't really lean one way or the other. It's like if you lean too far to one way, it becomes pure snuff. If you lean one way to the other, are you accepting this as, a filmmaking? And there's another great line. I think this one was Nick Pinkerton, the critic, who he said that there is this that this movie broke the unwritten contract that filmmakers have with the audience. And I thought about that line a lot, about how we go to the theater with expectations, and the filmmaker, we expect some, a form of entertainment. When we watch a movie, we expect there to be certain limits. And yeah, there are some filmmakers that push the limits all the time. You got your Cronenbergs, you got your David Lynches, you have your Tarantinos. I mentioned Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento. These are Italian filmmakers as well. You have guys that push the boundaries. Deodato was like, what's that, a boundary? Fuck that. We're going way over the top. I thought the episode of Cursed Films could have spent more time on the real dirty aspects to it. I felt like it only got to the animal cruelty in about the last 15 minutes of the 40-minute episode. They do give it enough time, they do, but there is a lot of animal cruelty. I mean, I don't want to see it on screen, but they could have given a little bit more background into that. It is kind of harrowing listening to the filmmaker, to the actors involved, talk about what it was like. Carl York struggles a lot. Like, he was asked to kill the pig on set, and he was like, do I want to be the guy? Do I want my career to be the guy who shot the pig in Cannibal Holocaust? At the end, they're all asked, what does the experience of Cannibal Holocaust mean to you? What does this movie mean to you? And I think the biggest thing that you can say is that none of the people involved, well, I don't want to say that, because Deodato seems to have no regrets whatsoever. Luca Barbareschi, he calls this movie rock and roll. It was just, turn the cameras on, boom, you're doing rock and roll, you're making a movie. He actually did shoot the pig on screen, and he talks about how, at screenings of the movie later on in his life, he's gotten death threats by animal rights activists who have threatened to kill him because of his involvement. Carl York says the first word he thinks of when he thinks of this movie is awful. Francesca Giardi says that she was just young and stupid, and she really has very little nice things to say, nothing nice to say, especially about Ruggero Deodato. I thought this could have been more. I would have taken 15 to 20 more minutes. I would have taken a full hour episode here, because I feel like this is a movie. This is a controversial enough movie. This is a notorious enough movie that you can give even more. I know the episodes are, 40 minutes. This one, you could have given a little more, because this one, is it a cursed film? No, there are no curses involved. There's no spooky nonsense. But this production and the lives and the effect that it had on the actors, and the effect it's had on cinema and horror cinema and Italian cinema, that does, again, I'm not going to say it's a curse, but it does, it's actually a shockingly important little movie. They make the point about, movies like this helped kind of kill off Italian cinema, especially Italian horror cinema. By the time I was a kid in the 80s, Italian horror cinema was dying off. You know, Fulci had left the Beyond and zombie flesh eaters behind, and he was making real shallow exploitation movies like the New York Ripper. Argento, the last great movie that Argento made in the 80s was probably Opera in the mid 80s, and then from there his career starts to go on a kind of a downturn. You know, Bava's Demons, Lamberto Bava's Demons comes out in 87 or 8, but the movies that sprung off from that, you know, they're just kind of, they're beating a dead horse by the time the 80s become the 90s. And I think that one of the points that this makes is that that downslide in Italian horror cinema started with not necessarily the production of this movie, but the negativity that came once it came out, and everything, and you know, the video nasty, and the idea that this movie got its filmmaker arrested and sent to jail for violating you know, animal cruelty and safety laws. If you've never seen Cannibal Holocaust, I leave that up to you. I would, if you're desperate to watch the movie, I would watch it on Shudder, the Joe Bob curated Last Drive-In episode, but I also probably would choose never to watch this movie again. I do love the score. I do think it's an important movie in horror cinema for some of the things it did, but I'm good. I'm good. As for cursed films, though, I thought 4 out of the 5 episodes this season were genuinely great TV watching. The Rosemary's Baby episode kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. So if they're going to bring back the show for season 3, I'm totally there. I think a season 3 would be a lot more fun, and I think the episodes should be like this. I think they should be less about the spooky, haunted, cursing, you know, let's look at what happens 20 and 30 years after the movie is made. Let's stop with that, or less focus on that and more focus on just these troubled productions, these harrowing film shoots, these movies that really left their filmmakers and their actors and the people that worked on them, you know, it forever changes them in a way. That's the stuff I'm interested in watching, and I would gladly take a season 3 if that's what we're going to get. So, yeah, that is Cursed Films Season 2. That was Cannibal Holocaust. Watch at your own risk. Pete and I are going to be back very soon with more videos. I have a video coming up where I'm going to be talking about all the horror movies that I watched while I was stuck in a COVID quarantine over the last couple of days. I think that'll be a fun little thing to talk about. And then I got a few other ideas coming up. Pete and I are going to be trying to do some more book reviews coming up. And the end of May, Stranger Things Season 4 is starting. Charlotte and I, along with Pete and Pepper, will be back to talk about Stranger Things Seasons 2 and 3 on the build-up to Season 4. So that's a lot of stuff you can look forward to. And we have a ton of videos for you to go and watch. Check out all my reviews for Cursed Films on Shudder. And we will talk to you very soon.